The hell are you staring at? Nothing. You mind your own business. Hello again, everybody. This is Robert P. Fitton, author of 1963, a documented novel about the months preceding the Kennedy assassination. You've just been listening to an alarm and a clip from 11/22/63, a novel by Stephen King, now on Hulu, Part 1, where we have Lee Harvey Oswald returning from Russia with his wife Marina, and the first thing he does is look at some guy that's looking at him and saying, "What the hell are you staring at?" "Nothing. Would you mind your own business?" I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's certainly a false portrayal of Lee Oswald. Lee Oswald was no angel, just a man, a young man at that. Lee Oswald was certainly not the man portrayed coming into the airport. Having read the book, it's just the beginning here of what we're going to see, another smear against Oswald. What they did in the Warren Commission originally, and the FBI reports everybody else way back when, was they took Oswald's behavior at the police station and they transformed that into an avatar of the real Lee Oswald. Now this avatar is mean, angry, confrontational, is an avowed communist, and everything that was said about Oswald or perceived about Oswald at that police station on November 22nd, 1963 is what's put into this avatar of Oswald in 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Here's the skinny on this. This is a very dangerous movie, and I don't say dangerous because it's a violent movie or some of Stephen King's movies are. That's not what's bothered me. That's not why it's dangerous, and nor does this movie even come close to that in that sense. Here's why it's dangerous. I am seduced by the writing of Stephen King into this time travel novel where James Franco, every time he goes back through that diner in Maine, starts right up where the girls come by in that beautiful Ford with two-tone pink and white. They're all having a good time. The old grumpy man in the 1955 Ford, I think it is, and the milkman breaks the milk bottle and says, "Oh, for the love of Mike." He's seducing me into it. It's a danger because they've got an avatar of Lee Oswald up there. I don't ascribe any motives, meaning, or anything to why Stephen King portrayed Lee Oswald as that type of character that's in the Warren Commission and some of the early books. Stephen King makes the offhanded remark, if Oswald did it or somebody else, and he just passes it on. He's more enthralled with his own time travel thing. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know any different. But as far as the general public is concerned and the ramifications of this book, it's not that way at all. It's not a lackadaisical thing. It's casting an avatar of Lee Oswald out there, and that avatar is not the actual man who lived. This guy went into the Marines after being in the Civil Air Patrol, was obviously, you can look at the documents, I'm not going to go into it now, but you can look at what happened, him being recruited by the CIA, actual pay stubs and everything else in Japan. The other thing is, Oswald is around all this classified information with the U-2, and then he heads off to Russia. In James Angleton's program for defectors, the guy gets out of the service early. The whole thing is rushed so he can get out, and you don't see that happening to anybody else. His mother got hit in the nose with a candy jar where she worked, and that was the excuse they used to bail him out of the Marines, send him to Finland, where they link up with this guy who has a contact who gets people into Russia because they feed him meals and give him beautiful women to be around and all this other stuff. So all this is going on, and then you look at this guy coming in at the airport. "What the hell are you staring at?" "Nothing. Would you mind your own business?" In reality, Oswald and his wife Marina immediately came back, were allowed to come back and live with no problems at all after living in a communist country. And he comes to the airport and supposedly goes, "What the hell are you staring at?" "Nothing. Would you mind your own business?" The rest of it, I love it. James Franco is at a rally with Kennedy, and they're playing Kennedy's audio, and they've got a guy from a distance and from the back who looks like Kennedy. It's just absolutely awesome. The idea that he's messing around with time and all these things happen in the book because he's messing around with time is just phenomenal. And then you see the contrast between the Maine of today and the Maine back then. And the whole thing about Al going out for 2 minutes when he's really been gone 2 years and develops cancer. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very seductive book. What I'm going to play right now is the actual transcript I used for my writing that was taken from Carlos Brinier. And that gives a breakdown of what Oswald said when he walked into his clothing store. They're sending Oswald in to make friends with the anti-Castro Cubans, give the anti-Castro Cubans his Marine Corps training manual, saying he's going to be able to derail trains, blow up bridges for them, how he hates Fidel, which, I think he played the part of whatever he needed to play. When he was handing out those pamphlets, they were trying to disrupt and disband the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. But at the same time, what they're doing is they're setting him up to be a communist. That's the motif from a CIA setup, a motif as Oswald as a communist. That's being set up, and then it's being used in this movie as the real thing. It's an avatar, folks. It's not real. Chapter 28. Lafayette Postal Annex, New Orleans, Louisiana, August 5th, 1963, 9:02 a.m. Upon leaving the hotel and all the way downtown, Patch checked the streets for the 1959 Chevy. With the manila envelope in hand, he led Sherry across the street and into the park at Lafayette Square. With birds chirping, they sat on a bench near a statue of Benjamin Franklin. He gazed up at the bald-headed Franklin, then ripped open the envelope. Inside was a larger black and white photo of Oswald in a shirt and tie as he handed out leaflets on a street corner. Sherry studied the photo. A little different from the guy in the bar last night. He looks different, clean cut. The yellow paper pressed between the photograph and an addressed return envelope to the box in Austin had bold type. Lee Oswald will be handing out more communist pamphlets, but may visit the Brinier clothing store at 107 Decatur Street. Check for Oswald and Carlos Brinier of the DRE. Position yourself as close to the store as possible. Get the pictures and sound. So he is a communist, said Patch. The DRE is an anti-Castro student group. A lot of money being dropped here, Patchy. Patch tucked the papers back in the envelope. I'd like to know who we're really working for. I don't think that's something we're going to find out. Rosselli may just be the contact, or his people could be running this. He stood and put his hand around her and panned the park. Who were the Cubans Oswald was with last night? More communists, Patch. I don't think so. I'm debating whether to call Rosselli about that '59 Chevy. Maybe one of Rosselli's people is watching the birds. The Impala, wedged between a white cube truck and a high-fin two-tone green DeSoto, provided an excellent vantage point across the street from Brinier's clothing store. Sherry held a 35mm Edixer as Patch positioned the sound amplifier rod atop the lowered window. For 2 hours on the headphones, he heard inconsequential conversations of customers, sales clerks, in Spanish and in English. He merely needed to push down the play and record buttons simultaneously to record the chatter. Here comes Oswald, said Patch. Take his picture. The shutter snapped as Lee Oswald, slight in build and not looking particularly dangerous, simply strolled down the street to the store entrance. Oswald's nose appeared larger from the side, his neck longer, and his hairline was receding. I got 5 or 6 pictures. Good. He turned on the chrome reporter, pushed the play and record button. Then he plugged the cord into the amplifier's auxiliary outfit. Let's see if he can talk these guys into becoming communist. Through the headphones, a Cuban man inside the store spoke passionately about his country. Sherry leaned toward the headphone.
Talking about $10 invasion bonds. Our fight, my young friend, is a struggle of Cubans. You are a mere youth. You wish I would supply you with the writing of our fight. You can hand out our literature, but I cannot let you into our organization until you are older. Excuse me, is this Cuban headquarters? Yes, I am an ex-Marine.
The speaker had a slight lisp or drag to his somewhat passive voice. Perhaps he had an amalgamated accent acquired from several areas of the country. Patch wasn't sure if it was Oswald who was talking with the Cubans.
Do you realize what this man Castro has done to that tiny island? There's no freedom. People are dead. For you see, communism holds no future. This man understands our cause. Do you have some of the literature against Castro?
Did you hear that, Patch? What's he up to? Somebody rustled paper inside the store.
He's my organization's report about Cuba. I think you'll find it very interesting.
30-second silence ensued. Patch watched the reel spin in unison and was about to shut off the recorder when the man he assumed was Oswald spoke again.
Listen, I have been in the Marines. I had extensive training in guerrilla warfare. I would volunteer my services to train the Cubans to fight against Castro. I can accompany guerrillas on sabotage missions. I believe this so strongly I'll volunteer to fight against this dictator.
Patch raised his brows and stared outside the door. Is he coming out? She asked. I think so.
No, we don't have nothing to do with military activities, sir. I can teach you how to blow up the Huey P. Long Bridge.
Patch, what? Sherry's mouth opened.
I can put powder charges at the bridge's foundation where the foundation meets the suspension part. I can derail trains, put a chain around the track and lock it, or even homemade explosives like a zip gun.
Holy God! She held the camera and shook her head. The Cuban nervously laughed.
No. My only duties here in New Orleans are to propaganda and information, no military activities.
Patch handed the headphones to Sherry. Listen while I turn over the reels. Just before the tape ended, he stopped the machine and flipped over the Mylar tape so the upper half now hit the recording head. Most of the next 30 minutes involved low-level talk that he found difficult to hear. Only when Oswald tried to give the Cuban money did Patch start the recording again. Sherry held the headphones so they both could hear.
Well, at least let me donate to your people. Senor, I don't accept money for our cause. I would need a necessary permit from the city hall in New Orleans. So I can't accept your money. Why don't you send the money directly to headquarters in Miami? Here.
He said after a short pause, and then he spoke again.
Here's the post office box in Miami. How's that? Sure. Now you must go to the bank. Nice talking to you.
More than a half a minute later, a man with dark hair and glasses exited the store with a satchel under his arm. Sherry caught his photo several times as he briskly walked down the sidewalk. But Oswald was not done inside the store.
I had a military manual when I was in the Marines. I can give it to you. You don't have to. Bring it to Carlos. Okay, next time I come in.
Pat shut off the recorder. He took out the amplifier cord and inserted the microphone into the jack. Something isn't right here. This guy is on both sides. He's playing both sides. Then he started the recorder again and spoke into the microphone.
Audio recording, 3.5-inch reel, August 5th, 1963. This is Lemon. The proceeding was a recording on August 5th, 1963, outside the Bringier's clothing store, 107 Decatur Street in New Orleans. The American in the conversation was Lee Oswald. We have taken several pictures of Oswald entering the store. He is returning tomorrow with some kind of military book. I will place this tape in the holder and send it to the proper address. For a guy who is supposed to be a communist, this Oswald sounds just the opposite. Double dealing with Bringier of the DRE. Lemon out.
Patch pushed the stop and then the FF button. Tape spun and raced toward the end of the spool. He removed the plastic reel with the sound duly recorded on the tape and placed it back in the container. She held up the return envelope with the Austin address. Patch dropped it inside, and Sherry sealed it shut. He started the Impala and gently pulled into traffic. A few blocks away, she spotted a red and blue mailbox. Mailbox, Patch. Our man Oswald seems to be working for somebody. I'm sure whoever gets this tape will figure that out. A week ago, I saw a new PBS Nova called The Memory Hackers. Making new memories does not necessarily mean going out to dinner and a show. Why would I bring the new technology into my podcasts about my books and comments about the Hulu movie 11/22/63? The program leaves us with this poignant note. Quote, By now, researchers are discovering that memory is far more malleable, always being written and rewritten, not just by us, but by others. End quote. Different memories utilizing smell, visual, motor memories are located in different parts of the brain, all of this bound by the hippocampus. I watched as messenger RNA moved into synapses, making new memories. And then on the screen, magnified countless times, these spindly venous tendrils, sensory and motor neurons form new synaptic connections. Memories are changeable and dynamic. What happens when we recall a memory? The growth occurs again. You see, memories we are finding now are not just a library. The act of recalling memories rewrites the story. Every time a memory is recalled, it's vulnerable to alteration. New proteins rewire the memory into the brain. And now back to the story. We have a false composite of a man who is said to have killed the President of the United States. I couldn't help but see before my eyes those synapses and nerve endings forming in people's brains, versions of reality not true. It gives new meaning to the word untruth. Why freedom and truth are so vital to the human spirit. Chapter 29. Canal Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, Friday, August 9th, 1963.
The President flew up to Cape Cod on a Jetstar aircraft to be with Mrs. Kennedy and his son Patrick Bouvier Kennedy. The baby was born 5.5 weeks premature and delivered by an emergency cesarean section at the Otis Air Force Base Hospital in Falmouth, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. Patrick Bouvier Kennedy has a birth weight of 4 pounds, 10.5 ounces, and has been transferred to Boston's Children's Hospital.
She looked over at Patch and opened the newest manila envelope from the post office box in Lafayette Square. Patch removed more money and counted 20 $100 bills. This must be damned important to somebody. We need to put all this money in a bank somewhere. It'd be safer than carrying it in the suitcase. What's going on with all these Cubans, Patch? Well, he said, starting the car, that's why we have Mr. Oswald under surveillance. What does that say about Oswald? Patch read the contents out loud. There will be an intelligence operative associated with a program called AK/DEFUN in the area. His name is Clay Shaw. Patch pulled out a small black and white photo of a tall man with wavy gray hair and a dark suit. That's Shaw. Remember, Rosselli said the government wants to nab me, and Shaw is with one of the intelligence agencies. Then we stay away from Shaw. Shaw's working with and maybe even controlling Oswald. Oswald is handing out leaflets on Canal Street, the 700 block. I'll monitor it and maybe even record it and then send the tape out to Box 13 in Austin. What about the pictures we've already taken? Oh yeah, I'll send the film to them once we finish the roll. The Galveston roll? Patch grinned. No, not the Galveston roll. At least Moon is dead and that's not hanging over us. My question, Sherry, is about Oswald. Besides Shaw, who else is behind all this pretend communist stuff? From the Impala, Patch pointed at Lee Oswald only a few minutes later on Canal Street. Oswald wore his usual short-sleeved white shirt and dark slacks. He carried some kind of holder for his leaflets. As a passerby would approach, Oswald plucked out a pamphlet from the holder. Can you read what it says on those flyers? Asked Patch as he tweaked the sound and prepared the little reel-to-reel recorder. Something about Cuba, she said, balancing the binoculars on the windshield. He was in Bringier's clothing store a few days ago, volunteering his expertise and money to fight Castro. That's not what those flyers say, Patch. It says, hands off Cuba. Do you want me to get one? No, we're supposed to remain out of sight. A woman proceeded up the sidewalk, holding one of the flyers in a purse strap. I take back what I said. That woman has a flyer. I see it. She exited the Impala and approached the woman about 20 feet away. Then she returned to the car with the flyer, and the woman crossed the street. She said she was looking for a trash barrel. This is a definite communist handout, said Patch, holding the flyer in his hand. Free literature and lectures, everyone welcome. I think I'll pass, he said, looking at the pamphlet. Who is A.J. Hiddell? Unknown. Probably a phony name. Just mail it with your tape. Patch studied the smirking Oswald through the binoculars. Patch, 544 Camp Street. That's the same address on Bannister's office card. Patch removed Bannister's card from his wallet holder. So Bannister and Oswald are working together. Here comes trouble. Carlos Bringuier from the clothing store and two Latin-looking associates move rapidly toward Oswald. Patch adjusted the headphone, but the street noise made it difficult to hear. Oswald went to shake hands with Bringuier, but Bringuier shouted in a tirade about how Oswald had just come to his store to fight Fidel Castro. Oswald had given Bringuier his Marine Corps training book and now was handing out literature to promote Castro. The confrontation escalated during the next few minutes, and Oswald called out to Bringuier,
"If you want to hit me, Carlos, hit me."
A short time later, the police arrived and physically removed them all from the street corner. Even after they were gone, Patch stared ahead. He looked at Shari. Oswald deliberately provoked that disturbance. I'll go back to what you asked, Patch. Is Shaw giving Oswald his instructions?
Audio recording 3.5-inch reel, August 9th, 1963. This is Lemon. I'm recording a tape on August 9th, 1963. Today I witnessed an altercation on Canal Street between Lee Oswald and three Latin men led by Carlos Bringuier from his clothing store at 107 Decatur Street in New Orleans. Oswald offered his support against Castro 2 days ago and supplied Bringuier with a Marine Corps training manual. He also volunteered to train soldiers as well as give money to the cause against Castro. However, today, Oswald handed out to the general public flyers that said "Hands off Cuba," in support of the communist government in Cuba. There ensued a verbal altercation where Oswald asked Carlos to hit him. The police arrived and all parties were taken away. I later met Guy Bannister, a private investigator, when I was walking down Canal Street. I mentioned the scuffle, and he said Oswald was with his office. That coincides with his office address written on the flyer, 544 Camp Street. The name H.A. Hiddell was stamped above this address. I'll mail the tape out in the morning. Lemon out.
Anyone listening to this podcast, as they watch the evolution of Oswald in 11/22/63 and how he is portrayed, should really tune into Black Op Radio and February 18th, 2016 broadcast. Researcher John Armstrong and Jim DiEugenio join Leno Sanek when you come to the end of that podcast and you realize that he did not buy that rifle. And then you watch the movie 11/22/63 and you start questioning what's really going on in this movie. But let me just leave you with this one thought. If they have to do this now and create this false avatar of Oswald for all these generations coming up, why? Why? There must be more people out there thinking about this being not the truth. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to watch this movie and enjoy it. This is Robert P. Fitton, and I've been journeying into a false past. What the hell are you staring at? Nothing. Would you mind your own business?